I don't think I'll probably... Does it not? Some student probably come in and trashed it. Yes, as was said, my name is Sarah Trotman. I'm Director of Business Relations and Industry Engagement and Executive Education in the Business School at AUT University. So my job basically is to go to lots of parties, drink lots of champagne and stay engaged with business leaders so that those business leaders open their doors to our students wanting jobs and co-op opportunities. So industry engagement is a very serious business here in the business school. So welcome to the Sir Paul Reeves building. This was built a year or so ago, coming up 2 years ago now, and named after our previous Chancellor, Sir Paul Reeves, who is a very great New Zealand leader. It's a real privilege for the business school to host the New Zealand Environmental Entrepreneurship Competition. Again, of course, it's the second year that we've hosted it. Wonderful for us to host the launch, and of course we'll host the regional rounds and also the national round very soon. Really important for us to demonstrate our deep commitment to being connected with outstanding senior students in the secondary schools right around the country. You are New Zealand's top students, demonstrated by the commitment that you put into initiatives like this, and we really want to stay engaged with you. So the university's business school is in the top 5% of business schools worldwide. We have international accreditation, and we have a 3-year business degree with 15 different majors, and 2 of those majors are very relevant to the competition that you're about to embark on. One is sustainable enterprise and the other is entrepreneurship and innovation. We have 6,000 students studying in our Faculty of Business and Law, and we would love you to be one of them if you're thinking of studying business. Don't hesitate to pick up both the overview of the business school and the faculty generally, and also a copy of our industry magazine that goes out to business leaders that share the thought leadership of our academics and the work that we do in industry engagement, which by the way is much more than just drinking champagne, going to business parties. Last year I was privileged enough to be in the room when the final round was taking place of this competition. And I was really impressed, not just by the ideas that came out, but also the thinking of the business models that were supporting those ideas. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what you come up with this year. But most of all, have some fun with the competition, really enjoy yourselves, and feel free to have a good old wander around the university in the days that you are here, because we very much see the university as a place for students, whether it's prospective students, students that might be going off to another university, students that might never go to a university, or our own students. So very much feel like this is your environment to use as you see fit. Enjoy, and I'll hand over to our very competent MCs.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Now I'd like to invite Kenyal Young. He was a chief organizer last year, and this year he's joined the mentorship program to help guide you guys through the process. So now Kenyal will be taking you through one of his presentations, and give a welcome.
Hello guys, as Simon said, I'm Kenyal, and I was one of the organisers for NZEEC last year, and I'm so glad that you guys all managed to make it this weekend. NZEEC is a very important part of the process that New Zealand is going through as a whole right now. I mean, the key aspects you can see in the name is that we're involved in the environment, which is a signature matter to New Zealand and entrepreneurship, specifically social entrepreneurship. And this is a social movement that is moving through New Zealand right now. Just to introduce a bit of context, we created NZEEC last year because we thought that youth really had great ideas, but as you guys know, you're involved in environmental groups throughout your schools, but so often that's really stuck to like planting trees or like rolling out wheelie bins and like collecting all the recycling. But we feel like youth can do so much more, right? So we were thinking, what would happen if we got a bunch of mentors together to really help support you guys to really make those connections to your dreams and make them into reality? And that's what NZEEC is about. Giving you guys a platform and an way of empowerment to get you guys to achieve your dreams while doing good for the environment. But first of all, I'd like to introduce the team for this year. We've had a complete renovation of the team, so you see, can you guys come up the front, please? I just get them to introduce themselves, their name, their school, and their main activities within the environmental and business space before I move on with my presentation. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just start us off. Hi guys, I'm Wendy. I'm a Year 13 student who goes to Maclean's College. Essentially, I've always been really passionate about youth entrepreneurship, especially in a place like New Zealand, because I feel like we don't have a lot of entrepreneurial spirit in New Zealand. So I kind of involved myself in a variety of different activities in that sphere, for example, young enterprise and stuff. But I took part in this competition last year as a participant. So I was actually in your seat like this time last year. And it was a really awesome experience. And I just really loved the basis of what this is about, you know, entrepreneurship, but on a social and altruistic basis. So that's why I'm essentially helping out organize this year. And I am essentially like the schedule manager and stuff. So I organize your time. But yeah, that's it. I won't say anything else. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Sonia. I actually don't do as much as Wendy does. I am Year 13 at St. Cuthbert's College, and I oversee all the design kind of stuff, so I do the schedules, I look over the schedules, and I made t-shirts, I make the posters, and all that kind of other jazz kind of stuff. So, yeah, cool.
Hey guys, my name is Jack, and I'm a Year 13 at Kristen School. I've been involved with the school environmental team and the Auckland Youth Advisory Group for the last 2 years. And yeah, I'm the event manager, so I basically coordinate all information about the events to you guys through email, text, etc. So yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Harry. I go to ARC, and I'm currently Year 12, and like Wendy, I was part of this competition last year. In fact, I actually went into the national round. I just think it's a great process, you know, like finding a great idea with your teammates and working it through to the end. And I hope you guys enjoy it and have fun.
Hi guys, my name is Simon, and I'm in Year 13 at King's College. At King's College, I'm the leader of our Round Square Environmental Committee, and what we do basically is try and formulate ways in which we can promote environmental practices and integrate them into student life, but also we endeavour to embark on these exciting environmental outings, which may or may not include what you've already done before, such as like tree planting, beach cleanups and all that stuff. And we're also thinking about doing something much more interesting in that, so yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Catherine and I go to Auckland International College. I've been involved in a lot of different environmental projects with Auckland Council, with Sir Peter Blakes, and it'll be great to see you guys starting something of your own, addressing the topical environmental issue. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. Yeah, so what I really love about this team is that basically I see them as just like you guys, like high school students who are really passionate about doing something, helping out, organizing, taking initiative, and helping out the environment, you know? And as you can appreciate, it's quite a difficult job to do, to organize like catering, venues, like mentors, contacting all of you guys, and making this day really happen. So I'd like you guys to give a big round of applause for them. So as we mentioned, Wendy and Harry were both part of teams last year. And just to give you an idea of what you could be doing, Wendy's team, which I was mentoring last year, actually created a business plan for making a community garden over in Pukekohe. So that's like quite different to something that you might be familiar with. Another team were coming up with a business plan for how to pull off like recyclable binders, or making binders out of recycled paper. Another team actually came up with this plan and the scientific model behind creating a phone case that would actually take the excess energy and vibrational energy stored to feed that back into electricity for the iPhone, which is pretty damn awesome if you ask me. But basically, let's go into social enterprise. How many of you guys have heard of the term social enterprise before? Please raise your hand. Okay, cool. So we're starting afresh. So basically the whole idea is that we've got, before, like, we'd had the model of charities over here, and we'd have businesses over here. And our whole concept of charities is that, like, they're really generous people who do great things and don't earn a lot. And then there's business people over here who, like, you know, are rolling as, and like, they're just like flicking money everywhere because they earn a lot. But the whole idea behind social entrepreneurship is that in the 21st century, we're all about creativity. We're all about combining ideas and aspects. And so we're combining the charity model, doing good while earning money, right? I know I've worked with a few charities and social enterprises. And what we've figured out is that it's quite frustrating to keep on asking for money for grants to run a charity of very limited means that you don't, so that you don't really have a sustainable form of income. While for businesses, they're always like, more and more employees are asking for a valuable way to put in their times and ways of doing good. So social enterprises is a way to combine the two. The beauty of that is that there's been a lot of research done into business models. Because businesses, you know, the world runs on money and economy. So people have done a lot of research on how to make money, how to create successful business models, how to manage teams, while in the charity space there simply isn't enough money to do that. So by combining the two, we can actually pool in the resources and the research and the best practice from all of those fields together to create a more effective entrepreneurial space. So what actually is a social enterprise? A social enterprise is basically a company whose product either does social good, or through its revenue or profit, they will invest it back into the economy. I mean, back into doing social good. So they'll actually sell a product of some form. So products can be services, they can be tertiary, secondary, primary goods. And then through that money, they can invest it back into the business, pay their workers, and know that their product is doing good for the environment and the world around us, which is exactly what we need. We can't really afford to keep on like oil fracking, you know, like dumping more and more plastic bags. I used to work in a supermarket and the number of plastic bags that would go through my hands in a day was just atrocious. So this is all about giving you guys the empowerment, teaching you guys business models so you can actually come up with a dream or an idea and put in a business model or an engine behind it so you can really start to get this idea on the road and start earning money so that it can keep on being sustainable and you can do good in this world. But to start off, I really want to start brainstorming with you guys. So if I can have the working group like just hovering around as well, just facilitating conversation. My first question to you guys, just talking within your groups, is what is your experience of New Zealand right now? So as a society, politically, environment, what do you see within New Zealand right now? What are the main problems? What are the key opportunities you've got in this society right now? I'd just like you guys to take like maybe 3 or 4 minutes, talk among each other and just see what are the great things about New Zealand, what are the bad things about New Zealand, and let's just explore that space, okay? So, cheers. Mentos, can you just hop in as well? Okay, how was that? Cool. Sorry to break you guys up. We'll have time for more discussion later.
Just basically need a website.
Yeah, sure. Get on the floor. Yeah. So I want you guys to start feedbacking to me some ideas, and I've got like our wonderful Louisa over here to write down some of them. So starting off from the front, like, what are some points that you guys were discussing about?
We haven't thought anything yet. We're still talking about it.
Still talking about it? I gave you guys like 6 minutes, I said 5. No, you guys, I was talking with you guys, so.
So, due to a small market and a small demand and small supply and demand in New Zealand, it makes it a lot harder for large companies, large enterprises and corporations to sustain themselves. And basically that means there's a lot less money going around. But then that's also something that contributes to a nice environment, and because we don't have a lot of like a major industry, well, like mine, or polluting industry.
Yeah. Sure, that's deep, bro. That's awesome, that's awesome. Can we have another theme from over here? Yeah.
New Zealand economy is growing very slow, so the gap between the rich and poor is too big.
Yeah. The rich end up pulling the ponytails of the poor. Sorry, I shouldn't be saying that. Awesome. This doesn't have to revolve just around the environment and economy, by the way. Like, I never did economics in high school, so I kind of know what you're talking about, but not really. Yeah, you guys?
We were talking about how we think on the political side of New Zealand, it's transparent,
Yeah.
quite transparent, and then it's so that people are really aware of what's going on. We think that's good for people.
Jumping back to you guys from the front, I'll just like pull out a random question from my bag. Let's say, how would you describe your experience of walking down just like Queen Street, let's say, as you were getting here?
Better than everywhere else in the world.
Better than everywhere else, but how was it like? What was your kind of experience? What were you seeing, smelling?
I live on Queen Street.
Oh, did you take a bus? Yeah.
I live on the Metro.
Okay, cool. I mean, just like generally your experience in the community. How would you describe the New Zealand, like the community that you live in New Zealand right now? Anyone from the back? Your experience of the New Zealand community. Wow. Do you not live in New Zealand? Kylie, do you give us an example?
So if you look around New Zealand, you might notice that there aren't many like electric cars. You know, there's hydrogen-powered cars, there's ethanol-powered cars on the market in other countries right now, but they're not in the market in New Zealand, and you don't see them driving around. And all of the petrol stations we see are like fossil fuel stations. You know, they're not ethanol or hydrogen stations, and that could be something that you can improve on.
Interesting fact. Did you know, like, up to 75% to 80% of New Zealand's energy is renewable, but that's not the case in Auckland. Auckland is run almost fully by fossil fuels, so if you actually have an electric car, it's not environmentally sustainable because the electricity produced to power that car actually comes from fossil fuels. So thinking about, let's say, just in terms of hybrid cars, you've got to think about where the electricity comes from as well. Okay, just have random hands up from, especially from the back, just ideas which you were talking about from before. Just. Come on, NZEEC is all about taking initiative and being bold. Sure.
New Zealand's got a massive farm industry, but farming actually produces a lot of carbon emissions, so that's probably one of the biggest
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Anyone else? Annie, since you just came in.
Could you repeat the question?
What's been your experience of like kind of give a bit of analysis on your experience of New Zealand so far, be that the economy, society, like politics, just like good or bad things about New Zealand in the present?
Well, I think New Zealand is progressively getting more and more environmentally unfriendly because of the increase in like cars and people's waste.
Perfect. Yeah. So, cool. Okay, so that's just some of the ideas that we're just going to start chucking and juggling around. So I think it's really important for youth these days to start thinking critically about the society that we live in. Because if we really want to improve it, we really need to identify what the problems and opportunities are. What things are we looking at that we're not very happy with that we want to fix? So to build on from that, I want you guys to have a discussion again, but going away from New Zealand in the present, I want you to start discussing what would an ideal country or community that you are living in look like? So like, for example, taking my previous question, what would it feel like walking down the street of your perfect country? Like, what would people be reacting? What would people be doing? Would there be buskers? Would there be like a ton of shops? Would there be no streets at all? Like, start thinking about this. Like, what would be your ideal New Zealand of the future? And I'll give you guys 5 minutes as well. And working group. Okay. And if I can have everyone coming back together again. Awesome. So I just love hands up. Like, what would you love in your ideal country? Just starting from front again. Sure.
No traffic.
No traffic. No traffic, yep. Middle-ish? Haven't heard anyone, but I know Wendy's been working with you guys, so.
Better public transport.
Better public transport, what would that look like? What's better?
Buses that come every 10 minutes.
Yeah, like electric.
Yeah.
There's ways.
Perfect. Over near the back? Sorry, I don't know your name yet. Just anyone, yep.
More native plants in suburban gardens.
Perfect. What about Irene from over there? Do you guys come up with any? Irene Jenner?
More shops.
More shops? No, I mean like, if you compare Sydney or Melbourne to here, like the vibe is completely different, right? Yeah.
Like the whole country run on renewable energy.
Renewable energies, yeah. Perfect. You guys? You had a good discussion before, right?
Sorry to see. No traffic.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
No corruption and equal opportunities for every, each individual.
Perfect. So I'm sure you guys had great ideas, but I'll just wrap it around here as we're waiting up for our next speaker. Basically, the whole idea with this activity is there's a gap between what New Zealand is in the present and where we want it to be. And I'm sure as you guys spend more time reflecting about it and thinking about what really is the ideal society that you're living in, that you want to live in, then you'll see that A, there is a gap, and B, someone needs to fill that gap, and C, that someone is you guys. And chances are that something which will lead that someone to fill that gap is going to be social enterprise, a way in which we can really financially sustain a way of creating change. So that's what I want to keep you guys in mind, like throughout this today and over the next week as well. Like the whole idea about social enterprise is not just creating money, but really identifying needs and opportunities and really fulfilling them so that we can make our society a better place. But thank you so much for your time, and we're going to head off. Yeah, MCs? Sure.
Round of applause for Ken.
Thank you so much, Kenya. So now we have Isabel Verne. I've worked really closely with Isabel in different environmental projects with Auckland Council, the Make a Difference Hui, and it's such a privilege to have Isabel here. She's a huge advocate for climate change movements, and she's also heavily involved in Generation Zero. So she's here to talk about altruism and leadership. So please welcome Isabel.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Isabel, and thank you so much for having me come speak at this conference today. And yeah, my presentation is going to be a little bit broad, but I think that just partly reflects the broad nature of sustainability itself. So, I mean, as Catherine said, so my personal thing is climate change, and for different people here, sustainability will mean different things for each of you. So, yeah, so I kind of want to start off with a story about my flatmate and I, just like to show what sustainability can mean to different people. And this is like a little bit of an argument at a veggie store where we were talking about plastic bags. And the gist of it was, she thought that, you know, it's a good idea to use less plastic bags, and I was a little bit more ambivalent on that point, you know, like plastic bags, I mean, they're kind of all right. They're not really my thing that I kind of campaign on. So for Cardia, my flatmate, what sustainability means to her is the kind of the waste and the, I suppose, overconsumption that is symbolized by plastic bags. And something that we all agree on, something like, you know, our beautiful country. This is Waikato Moana in the eastern North Island, and For her, it's like plastic bags is clogging up the environment, and this is what she believes in. This is also what I believe in. And for me, plastic bags are pet hate, but they're a little bit different in terms of why I dislike them. I do dislike the focus on plastic bags. You know how warehouses, every once in a while, they bring out their like 10 cents per plastic bag campaign or whatever it is. It just pops up every once in a while. And for me, I just feel like the conversation should be on more important things. So say you go around, you talk to your friends, and you convince them all to let's use less plastic bags. So that's a lot of plastic bags saved there. Even if you go around and reduce plastic bags as much as possible among your family and your networks and all that, at the end of the day, I mean, it doesn't even touch on the vast proportion of waste in our country. This is a graph of New Zealand's climate emissions in terms of like where the emissions come from, and you'll see that this is waste down here, and it's only 5% of our carbon emissions. So the way I see it is like, no matter how hard you campaign on waste and things like that, you still got the 95% to campaign on or to think about. So, summary of that is kind of like, there's a difference between actions and causes. I mean, I do try to save plastic bags myself. That's the actions I take. But in terms of causes to champion, what I like to champion on is causes with great impact. So, in terms of climate change, why do we look at something like public transport, which is where the greatest impact can be? And that's a concept that is called effective altruism, which many of you may have heard. It's a TED talk, quite a popular TED talk about effective altruism. And that just means that each one of us in this room, we all have certain resources to give to I suppose, volunteering or to doing good. Resources like time, energy, who you know and who you talk to, and what you can do. And effective altruism is about, out of all the things you can choose to do, why don't you choose to do what will create the greatest positive impact for everyone? So, here are a few, before I go on, this is me doing my thing in high school. So this is a rubbish monster costume that we rolled our assemblies to convince people to waste less. And apparently, like, the stuff I was doing apparently was a good thing because I won this award once from the council. And that was a long time ago. I think since then I've just come to realize I've almost like started to look down on what I was doing in high school. I mean, it is a feel-good thing, but the whole point of it is that I wish I had done things that perhaps have more impact and perhaps have more meaning nowadays. And these are some stories about things that do have impact. Have any of you guys heard of the Pacific Rubbish Vortex? Yeah? It's, for one thing, it's a really cool name. And what it is going back to the plastic bag story. So the litter that doesn't go into the landfills, often one way or another finds the way to the oceans. And you've got these big ocean currents that kind of pull the rubbish into certain areas and concentrates the rubbish there. And one of them happens to be the Pacific Rubbish Vortex. And no one really knows how big it is, but it's some like proportion of Australia. So it's huge, frankly. And this is something that's a huge, frankly, environmental disaster, which not many people talk about, and it's very expensive and kind of difficult to solve. Until this one guy came along called Boyan Slap. He was 19 when he came up with this idea. And it's called Ocean Cleanup. It's a tech startup company that he founded. And possibly a lot of you guys know about this, but essentially it's technology that uses the ocean currents to kind of pull all the rubbish together into certain spots. And that's how you can clean up the rubbish vortex faster and more cheaply than the previous technology. So this guy came along, 19-year-old, started up this thing, and now they reckon they can clean up the Pacific Rubbish Vortex in 10 years. So he made it like technologically feasible and financially feasible to clean up one of the biggest environmental disasters that we have. So here's another story. This is about conservation. So conservation, if you want to do good conservation work, it is a science, which means you have to have good data. You want to go like save the rhinos, and you have to know how many rhinos do you have, where are they, how are they, and sending scientists to go and find that data is really, really resource expensive. You know, it takes a long time, it takes a lot of money, which is why a few engineers came along and they thought, why don't we just send drones to do this work? So this is the drone here. little kind of self-piloted planes. They're quite cheap for what they are. They're quite easy to program to fly where you want it to fly. And what you can do is just set it off on certain paths and essentially do the conservation work for you. So here's a drone being used to fly over a patch of forest and look for these orangutan nests, which previously you had to go send people to go walk through the forest and climb up into the trees and find the orangutans manually. So you can imagine how much time that saved. Here's another story. I suppose the previous two stories are about kind of clever individuals who go and do clever things. So this is more about what our governments are doing, because obviously it's their job to do a lot of this as well. So this is a person who believes in the power of cities to combat climate change. You probably are quite aware of how little our governments are doing about climate change and how little they have been doing for about the past 35 years now. And this guy, his idea is the fact that why don't we get our cities to work on climate change? And he's talking about this thing called C40, which is like a network of the mega cities around the world. And they've come together to look at how to mitigate the effects of climate change and how to start solving as well. Cities are where the greatest carbon emissions come from, so effectively, cities have the ability to do a lot of good things where governments can't. I'll show you an example from Auckland. So, in terms of public transport, was kind of popped up in the ideal world, ideal future that you're talking about. And have a look at this graph of people using public transport in Auckland, and you'll see how, it's been reasonably steadily going up until you build Britomart, and then that rate of increase just shoots up. So that was when Auckland kind of pulled its head out of the sand and realised we need to get some proper public transport infrastructure in here. So they built Britomart, and look what a good thing it's done for us. What I want to point out from those stories, what I want to kind of collect from those stories is the concept of doing effective change or creating effective change for sustainability is about creating systemic change. You have to change the way people think, and you often have to change the way that people interact with each other and the environment. Imagine if you're one of the people who are behind getting Britomart built. You can look at this graph and know that you have gotten, this huge number of people using public transport who wouldn't have been there if there had been no Britomart. And it's quite a big asking, people like you, people like us, to go ahead and create systemic change. What does that even mean? And perhaps another way of looking at it is the fact that it's a big ask for you, but it's also a big ask for the people that we're asking to change their lives, for our values. We're asking people to, please get out of your cars and please start using buses. And I guess the point there is you can't just ask people to change their culture overnight. But what you can do is start creating some, I suppose, ways for the change to be easier. Britain's a pretty good example because it's like, instead of just asking people, please start using buses, why don't you just build a very efficient system of, moving buses around Auckland, and when it gets easier for people, then they will be happier to kind of follow the culture change that you're asking of them. I suppose the big question of effective altruism is, where should you put yourself to be able to create the most change? Where should you put yourself to be the most effective? Part of that is a philosophical question. So this is quick look at I suppose the need for systemic change and how I suppose pervasive it is in our society. But so this is more about the philosophy of change itself. You guys know the Occupy Wall Street protest. So this is the 99% going to sit in Wall Street and protest against what they saw as wrong about how money was moving our society. And what this shows is that these people who are protesting from the outside, so trying to create change from the outside looking in. Wall Street's quite a symbol of the status quo and how things are done. And these are people protesting from outside of that status quo. And the other philosophy behind how to create change is to do it from the inside. If you're part of the system, you can be part of changing the system, and perhaps that's easier than just standing outside the gates, yelling and trying to get in. I feel like that's something that my philosophy has changed around that in recent years. And I just kind of want to point out the changing nature of protests. So this is the anti-nuclear movement back in the 60s in New Zealand. And back in those days, of course, there's no social media. And how that protest gained ground, I think there was, at the peak of it, there was this one petition that gained signatures from 10% or more than 10% of the New Zealand population. So that's pretty amazing in terms of how many people were getting involved in this protest. And how that protest gained ground was people separated into groups back in those days. So you'd have all these groups against nuclear. So you'd have mothers against nuclear, and you'd have doctors against nuclear, and you'd have, this town is going to be anti-nuclear, or this school is going to be anti-nuclear. And you'd have all these people who kind of identify in these different groups, and they all come together in these groups, and that's how you gain the people mass behind the movement. A little bit different these days in terms of how things are done. That was an example of the anti-nuclear movement. This is an example of the feminist movement, the fourth wave of feminism. And this is based on social media because, like it or not, collectivism is here, and it's quite hard to get people onto the streets. It's a lot harder than it used to be. But this is the movement that's kind of realized that times are changing and the kind of nature of activism has to change as well. And this is the movement that has gained power essentially on Facebook and social media like that. So, yeah, I suppose I want to move on now to a bit about if you want to create the greatest change you can, what are your skills? Because it's all about where you should put yourself to create the greatest impact should be about what are you good at and about accentuating what you're good at. And I thought I'd just pull out like a few things that I think are the most important in terms of skills that you should try to develop within yourself. And the first one is, of course, just communication. I don't just mean communication in terms of being able to write well, being able to speak well. I mean communication in terms of knowing how to understand your audience and knowing how to resonate with your audience. Interesting example of climate change. Here's, of course, Obama. Obama has been very pro climate change action for many, many years. And a few years ago, early and middle of his presidency, he would always focus on the economic benefits of climate change. He'd always say, these are the jobs we get from green jobs. This is how much wealth we'll create for our country by focusing on renewables or other things related to climate change. And he's changed his tack recently. He's changed to the moral argument of climate change. He stopped saying let's create jobs with mitigating climate change, and he started saying how irresponsible it is to leave our world in a bad state for our children. And that's just, I suppose, perhaps a big misunderstanding about climate change communication, which has cost us about 35 years, in terms of people have kind of let climate change slide into a big, almost like a fight between the left-wing and right-wing politics. And there has partly been a failure of communication in terms of understanding each other's values. So that's really how important communication is and being able to understand other people and what is important to them. And this is George Monbiot, who's quite a prolific left-wing blogger, and he has done a lot of, he's spoken up quite a bit about how we should, when we talk about climate change, we should talk about what it means to us. You know the photo that I showed you of Lake Waikato Moana right at the start? We should talk about why we treasure the environment for what it is, rather than getting stuck into these economic arguments or these kind of more rational arguments about climate change, because at the end of the day, you have to be emotionally involved, and you're only emotionally involved if the values are there. So yeah, that was more about like communication and negotiation. This is, I suppose, just straight up, if you have like good organizing skills, I think being able to kind of almost like be a logistical genius is quite an important skill in terms of activism and in terms of organizing people. So it's just an example of a speaking tour that I ran 2 years ago now. And it was quite a highly successful event. We obviously went all over the country. And this is a picture from our Auckland event. And we had over 2,100 people show up across the country. And that's just an example of, like being able to get stuck in and create real change using what skills you have. And so that was, I suppose, the question that started off on this was, what skills do you have? What skills do you want to kind of accentuate within yourself? And I would like to just point out that it's almost a relevant question if you think about the fact that all of these skills are ones that can be learned. So don't just say that you are or you're not a good communicator. These are something that can be learned. A few last things to finish off. Leadership isn't just about being good at doing this, being good at doing that, or being good with people, or things like that. I think it's really, really important to know why you're doing something, especially when you're being involved in activism. This is a group that I was involved in, and it's a group for education inequality, so very different, obviously, tack to climate change. And this is where I learned a lot of my own skills about how to organize groups, how to start up groups, and things like that. And I think I gained a lot of energy out of this group because they really, really believed in me. I think I came in at a time where I was perhaps quite low on my own self-esteem and my leadership skills. I think this group really believed in me and really, really built me up. So I think it's really, really important that you surround yourself with people who believe in you and do love you to some extent and really believe that you can go ahead and create great change. And it is quite easy to lose track of why you're involved in certain things and almost get stuck into the details of things. And you do need people to kind of help pull you out a little bit and look at the bigger picture. So I hope this group I hope what you're doing here is something that you can, something that you really believe in. And I hope that you are, I don't know, just really start on the journey of kind of discovering for yourself what you can be and what you can do. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for coming. You've been like a really inspiring role model for me personally. So I hope many of you found something, are going to find something that you truly care about to tackle as well. So thank you. Thank you.
Alright, now we've got scheduled a little break, so outside there are some refreshments for you, little nibbles, little drinks. So you guys can feel free to have a wander around, have a rest, and we'll be back here in about 15 minutes.
Now your attention, please. Okay, so now we have Lena Sosa, and she's here to talk about the social link canvas. Lena found and ran Enactus New Zealand at Auckland University, and which was a precursor for Social Innovation New Zealand. She's been involved in a lot of organisations that focus on social enterprise and kickstarts. So she'll be teaching you about social link canvas, which is a very important element of this competition, and that is how you advance to the next round as well. So please welcome Lena.
Thank you. Yes, please. Click it. I'm so impressed being at AUT, how professional all the equipment is. So, a group of high school students can organise something that has a clicker. At University of Auckland, we don't do that. I'm really glad to be here. I thought I'd start with telling you the story of how I ended up here. So I'm born in Norway and lived my first 21 years in Norway. And I did a year exchange in Amsterdam. And during university, I heard about this university group called NZEEC, Students in Free Enterprise. And they engage students in community projects or community entrepreneurial projects. They didn't call it social enterprise then, but that was kind of basically what it was. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. You guys are actually out in communities helping people. And so I studied, my degrees are in sociology, which means that we study how society works. And so we ask questions about why are things the way they are? How can we understand them differently? We don't really talk about how to address them that much. And so I spent 4 years thinking about all the questions of like, why is society the way it is? Like, obviously things are not working. Like, how did we end up here? And so when I came to New Zealand, which was 3.5 years ago, I looked up this group. So I googled Students in Free Enterprise Auckland. And what came up was Students in Free Enterprise AUT University. And I thought, brilliant, I'll go over to them. And so I went over to them in the building next to us here, and they said, yep, sure, you can join us, but we're not really allowed, because it's like an international organization that has like certain rules for how the teams can operate. So it was like global organization and then like local university teams. And they said, you can stay with us for a little while, but we're not sure how long you can stay with us because it's not really allowed within the framework since you go to a different university. And so I said, cool, I'll work with you guys for 6 months. And after those 6 months, the leader of the organization was like, all right, you've been here for a semester. Now you go and start your own organization. And I was like, I can't start an organization. I can't, like, I wasn't even the team leader for the project I was on. I was kind of the de facto team leader because the actual team leader wasn't that great. And I was like, what are you talking about? I can't start an organization. And then they were like, well, okay, that's, it's up to you if you want to do it. And so like I looked around me and no one else was going to step up. And so I then just did it. Got everyone together and we started it and we founded Enactors at University of Auckland, which is a pretty similar organisation to this one in spirit, where we're trying to engage young people, understanding the problems in the world and how to address them using business skills, as well as some hard skills. And it was really in the process of doing that I realized that, man, I have like power in the world. I can do shit. And so from there, I just started like, calling up like people that I knew. Like for example, I contacted Alex Hannant at the Hikurangi Foundation, which is now called the Akina Foundation, which is a big support organization for social enterprise. And I was like, hey, yo, would you like to have a coffee with me? Because I'm this young university student and I need a mentor. And he was like, I'm too busy, but I'll give you our lead venture manager. And so like, he became my mentor. And so like, I started like doing all these things that I had never thought I could do, but there was not really any boundaries anymore, because I could just like, I went from one thing I couldn't do to another thing I couldn't do. And before I knew it, I'd had a couple of different internships working for social enterprise organizations. When I graduated, I actually got a job with the Akina Foundation, which I was like, why on earth would you hire me? I have like no skill. And they were like, yeah, you've got mean skill. You've been doing this already. And so it's really about like that journey of like realizing you can do stuff that you didn't realize you can do if you just like don't worry about it. just go and do it. And so that's really why I'm here, because I want to help as many other people as possible to also have the same experience of going, fuck, I can do it. Because that's really how we're going to change the world. And so hopefully today I'll be able to put some thoughts into system and help you have a framework that you can work within when you need it to create change in the world. If you have any questions during the presentation, just feel free to put your hand up or shout out. It's perfectly fine. We'll have some time at the end as well to ask questions. I might just kick into it. So we'll talk about what a social enterprise model is, what a startup is. We'll talk about lean startup. We'll talk about the canvas models, and specifically the social link canvas, of course. And then we'll go through bit by bit on the canvas, and you've got one in front of you. You can also download them online, so don't worry about like keeping this particular copy. But you might want to take notes in each of the boxes as I'm going through them. And then we'll talk about some next steps and advice at the end. Alright, has everyone got their sheet of paper? And can everyone hear me at the back? Because it's kind of essential to just like put your hand up if you can't hear me. This is probably not the first time you've heard this, but a social enterprise model, right, it has two parts, a mission and an engine that drives that mission. And that mission, I think, should be a clearly stated social and environmental mission. And the mechanism is meant to drive you to be financially self-sufficient, not necessarily to make heaps of profits or to make heaps of money for the sake of it. It's like the two go together. And it's just like the kind of model that you need for the specific purpose that you have. There are like many attributes of social enterprise. I'm not going to really talk about, I'm not going to really attempt to define social enterprise or like talk about what it is exactly, because it's a bit of a contested space. Some of the like really core or like common features to social enterprise is that they have a very clear intent, which is that mission that sits behind and like drives like everything you do. When you make a decision, like think about, is this going to advance my mission? Otherwise, just like go home. There's no, there's no reason to do it otherwise. And a business model, which we'll talk about later, profits, which in this context, again, doesn't necessarily mean that you're like creating money that you're just going to like sit with and distribute. It's like the profit is like integrated into the whole model, so that you can use that profit to drive more social or environmental benefits. And then often there's like different, social enterprises are often different in the way that they do ownership and control. And so different from charities, for example, that don't need to go too much into that, but it's like legal framework for like who gets the money, who's responsible, all that kind of stuff. Often there are kind of different frameworks for how you are accountable and how you are transparent as an organization. And it's like social enterprise organizations often like account also for like the social value that they create, not just like financial reporting. They also do like, well, how many people have we helped and in what way and how do we know that? And so you'll see that that's actually also a component of the canvas, which is called key metrics. And then the final bit is scale, which is about advancing or like building up that model so that you can help more people, which isn't necessarily something that you want to do if you're not building a model that is meant to scale or meant to help every single person on the planet. That's okay, but it's often an element because the bigger you are, the more impact you can have. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about what a startup is. And I had a phone call with Rowan Yeoman, who's a former colleague at the Akina Foundation, and he held this workshop here last year. And he's like, he's like an experienced like venture manager, invests in startups, like leads startup weekend New Zealand, and it's like, he sees like hundreds of startup ideas every year, and he like does this for a living, right? And he was like, oh, the one thing you really have to focus about, or like you really have to tell them, if you tell them like nothing else, tell them this, which is that a startup is not a small version of a business. A startup is an organization that is searching for a model. It's searching for a business model. And so you're not like setting up from like day one exactly how it's going to work, because you may not know how it's going to work. And so you're this is often the mistake that like all businesses make, I'd say. Where you go out and you have the intent of like, well, I know all these bits, I know I need to do all these things, and so you just like start doing it instead of having like a plan for how do you know if what you're doing is the right thing to do, and how do you learn along the way. And so that's how we differentiate between a startup and a business. Lean startup, I will talk about because it forms the foundation of the social lean canvas which we've got in front of you. And lean startup is it's a business methodology which is about how can we do things faster, better, how can we avoid waste. So say you have no money but you want to start this company, how would you do that? And so it's kind of a scientific model, and it goes about testing assumptions. And so you say, I have this idea. I admit that pretty much everything in this idea is my assumption at the moment. I think this is how it works, but I don't know. And so you write it down and you say, okay, this is the most risky assumption I'm making. I think that, and my most risky assumption usually is, I think there's a customer that has a particular problem. And I think that the solution that I have relates to that problem somehow. But you admit that it's just an assumption at this point. And so with Lean Startup, what you do is that you take that and design an experiment, and then you go and test that. And so that means that you actually, often you build a product. So say, for example, with Dropbox, what they did, I suppose everyone here uses Dropbox. So I don't know how long they've been around, 5 years maybe. Before they started, they had this idea that, well, if we somehow can create this document sharing system where you can drag and drop folders and stuff, people would really like that. And so what they did, because they didn't actually have the money yet to build the whole system, they just made a video. They designed the logo, made a video showing someone dragging a file, dropping it into Dropbox, and showing up in the cloud. And they put this video online, and then they had a button underneath that said sign up to use Dropbox. And thousands and thousands of people clicked the button and were like, yeah, I want Dropbox. And they were like, no, sorry, it's not available yet. And it was all the purpose of that was just to find out, is this a good idea? And when you see that many people jumping at it, it's probably a good idea. And so if you want to learn more about the Lean Startup methodology, just Google it. And with anything in this presentation, just there's so much resource online, so many great videos on YouTube that talks to step by step how people use this process. Another really important part of the thinking behind Lean is to accept failure and change. And so that will probably be really important for you guys as well as you're working as a team to create an idea together. And as you're working through the canvas, you might find that the team disagrees, for example, about, no, we don't think anyone are prepared to pay for this, or this idea is rubbish, someone in the team might say. And then really drill down to, is it good? Or is it just we're hanging on to it because we're so excited about it to begin with, and we don't want to let go of it. And if that's the case, if there's actually not really much merit in your idea, change it. Or throw it out if it's complete rubbish. But make a small change, and that's what they call a pivot in this particular framework. And with that pivot, you're hopefully one step closer to a model that actually works. And it's pretty foundational to this framework that the more often you fail, the more you're learning. And so it's okay to be wrong. And so I wanted to go and talk about the canvases. Has anyone used a canvas model before? A business model canvas? Oh yeah, hardly anyone. Has anyone seen a business plan before? Oh, okay.
So a business plan, I haven't actually seen many myself either, partly because I often use this framework. A business plan is something that you learn to write often if you study business at university, or if you're a business and you want to present to a bank or other funders, you write up this business plan. And if you like Google business plan template online, you'll find like heaps and heaps and heaps of different frameworks, and they have anything for like 40 to 80 pages of like different headings you're going to fill in, like everything in like every minute little detail you're going to fill in. And it's really great for like if you know what the model is, or you know what you want it to be. But if you're prepared to change, why would you spend like hours and hours and hours writing up this complicated plan if you're not quite sure? And so that's why Alex Osterwalder developed the business model canvas a few years ago. And so he said, what if we could map out all the most important aspects of my business idea on a piece of paper, and we can like see them all together. Like, how will that work? And so it turns out that like people really wanted this, and like people that, you know, it's not revolutionary in the sense that people don't know how to create a model for like, you know, different kinds of models, but now people have like a shared language, and they can go like, oh, I have this business model canvas, and another person go like, oh, I understand how that works, and now I can critique it and engage with it. And so the business model canvas maps out, it's quite similar to the one you've got in front of you, but it's not based on the idea of this lean framework. The lean canvas was developed a couple of years later by a guy called Ash Maurya, and he said, well, if we want to start a startup in like this day and age, it should be like, this is what I think it should look like. And so this is one version of how you might want to map out a lean business model. And so this really focuses on, again, like, if you can like hold all these bits lightly, you can change them and you can see how they work in relation to each other. And the social lean canvas, which was developed by Dave Moskowitz and Rowan Yeoman together with the Kina Foundation, has used the lean model and built onto it. And so what you'd see is that the lean canvas, so this is pretty much the lean canvas plus a box at the top and a box on the bottom. It's a little bit more than that because the customer segments change a bit. The key metrics will change because you're doing something very different than just a regular business model. And so perhaps the most important element is the purpose box right at the top. And it's not really part of your business model because you don't really need to go and validate it. You know that it's right. It's like, why do you get up in the morning? You know, like, why do you do this? It's like, yeah, why are you doing this idea? But what's important is that when you look at this piece of paper, you're able to go, oh, I want to look at this channel, okay? This is how we're going to reach our customers. And then you might say, oh, but if we do it in this way, we're compromising on our social purpose. We can't do that because that's why we're here. And so you make all the decisions guided by the purpose. The bottom box is about the social impact, and we'll get to that. And so again, it has those two elements, the enterprise and the impact. And so I thought I'd go through step by step all the different boxes of a canvas. And so this is where you might want to write down, maybe even if you like already have an idea, you might want to start sketching it out on the canvas to see how it works. So like I said, the purpose is why are you doing this? Why are you doing this particular idea? What's your vision? What are your goals? And so you want to state that in a quite succinct, maybe like a couple of sentences, but you don't want to write, like you could write probably a book about it, maybe, but
for the purpose of the canvas, you just want to like drill into like what are those like really key drivers for like why do you do what you do. And also it's pretty great that when you know that, you can communicate it to other people and they will go like, I get what you're about. The next bits we're going to go through are linked. And so you'll see the purple bits hang together. And so as I'm going through them, this might also be the order that you want to go through the canvas in. So you might want to number the boxes on the canvas in the order that I go through them. There's not really like a rule for how you do that, but it's once you start understanding it, it makes sense to do it in this way. So a customer segment, it's a bit of an unfortunate language, because this is, we've taken this from like the lean model, like pure business language, and we're applying it to this like social context. And so when we talk about customer segments in the context of the canvas, we're talking about stakeholders as well as customers. We might even talk about volunteers. So it's like, the really key thing here is that it's everyone you need to move in order for your model to work. Anyone that you rely on. And so for example, this organization is someone that you rely on. So they will be a customer. If they don't like your idea, you're not going to get the money. And so think about who uses your product or service, who pays for it, because they might be different. In a social enterprise model, you might have someone who uses the service for free and another funder that is interested in that person using it, but they're really the one paying. And then, like volunteers, just a way to I find that a way to arrive at a good list is to list everyone that are involved, everyone, even as far out as does my local community care? Does the government care? And then you start working backwards again, where you go who are the people that care the most and that will be the most involved? And probably you'll find that there may be 2 or 3, probably not more than 3, because at that level it gets quite complex. Problem. This is not really about the problems in the world. This is about the problem that your customer has. And also, again, the language is a little bit unfortunate because it doesn't necessarily have to be a really negative thing. And my boss, he often tells me this, he's Lena, stop talking about problems. And I'm but it's just problem solution. I start thinking through this framework, and so I start applying the same language. But the problem is not the problem the world has, but it's a problem that your customer has. And you know that your customer has a problem if your customer is actually trying to solve that problem. And so you'll see at the bottom of that box in the canvas, it says, what are the existing alternatives? And it's really, it can be really enlightening to fill that in and have a really good think about what are these people doing? Say if they're say if your customer group, one of your customer groups is people that don't have homes, people that sleep out in the street. What is the existing alternative? And you might think, well, they don't have a home, so there's no existing alternative. That's not true, because the existing alternative is to sleep under a bridge, or to sleep at a shelter, or maybe to crash at a friend's place. And so think about how do they currently deal with that problem? And don't list 50 problems, even though you can probably think of 50 problems. Focus on the 1 or 2 or 3 really core problems that you're trying to solve. And focus on those where the customer has the most pain. And this, so the customer and the problem relates to the unique value proposition. And this is where the business lingo comes in. Often shortened as the UVP. The unique value proposition is about what kind of unique value do you propose to the customer that you can bring to them. And so like the trick here is that it's actually not that hard. It's like the opposite of the problem. So like if the problem is I don't have anywhere warm or safe to sleep, then the unique value proposition might be we provide you with a really convenient, warm and safe place to sleep. It's that easy. And the reason that this is really important is to separate out the value that you bring to the customers. One is that when you can like articulate it really well, it will resonate with your customers, and so you can use that in your marketing language. You can say, well, this is why you care, like this is how we can help you, and they were like, oh, of course I want a place that's like dry and warm. They're not going to say no to that because you know the problem. But when it comes to the solution, the unique value proposition, or the solution is what removes the problem for your customer. But it's like, what is so great is that when you separate out the solution, the value proposition, and the problem, is that you're able to like observe, if you like look carefully for it or design like an experiment that's like specifically addresses this, you'll be able to see like if you give a product or a service or an offering to a customer and you say, you know, this is my thing, do you want it? And they say, nope. Or they're like lukewarm and they're like, maybe, sure, okay, I'll take it. You're not getting like any feedback about like why don't they like it? What you want to know is like, is it the problem that the solution actually doesn't solve their problem? And there's like a mismatch between like your idea and the problem that they have. Or maybe it's just like the way you're articulating it. Maybe it's just like the way you're saying it with your unique value proposition that's the wrong thing. And so if you can like ask questions in such a way that you find that out, you'll be able to like really like hone in on like, yeah, I know this is like exactly the right unique value proposition. And you're like, when you're able to connect all those three things, and your customer go like, yes, I know exactly how that problem or how that solution is going to solve my problem. That's like when the magic happens. And so your solution is usually like, when you think about your idea, typically the way you think about it, that's the solution. When you think like, oh, I want to provide a homeless shelter for free, that's your idea. It's like the thing that you're creating. And so like after you've gone through those bits, and they're also typically the most risky parts of your canvas, because if you don't have a customer, like there's no point. If your customer doesn't have a problem, there's no point. And so if you realize that actually there's like, you don't have a customer that has a problem, then change it. You're like on the wrong track. But if you realize that like, oh, you know this like customer, this person in need has this really like important problem that's like really bugging them, it's really painful. And you know that they have that problem because they're like, you can see it and they know it. But you just like, you don't have the right solution. Like that's okay, you can change the solution, but you can't change the problem for a person. It's also really hard if you think like, it's really easy to fall into the trap of going, well, you know, like for example, we know that there's a lot of Kiwis that don't eat very healthily. And so we just provide them with this like, say like, oh, we'll provide them with like free food or a meal plan and they'll eat healthy. But if this person doesn't actually perceive that to be a problem themselves, you can't go about it in that way, because this is about the problem that they themselves experience, which is like something that we often meet when we're trying to do social enterprise or like charitable projects. It's like, but like this is a problem. We all know that like homelessness is a problem. But what if that person like likes, or like not likes, but like prefers to be out on the street over the other existing alternatives? Then like how do you address that? And so be wary of that as you're developing a model, that don't tell your customer what their problem is. Like, listen to them. What are they saying? And if there's a problem that you want to solve, that's like, well, I want to solve like healthy eating, but my customer, they don't realize that they're not eating healthily. Well, then maybe think about who are interested in them eating healthily. Maybe it's like the Diabetes Foundation. Maybe it's the government. Maybe it's the local community. Maybe it's their kids. And so find another way of going about it. These next bits are like all on one slide because they're like kind of less important, or they're all important and interesting, but they're kind of they're not like pivotal like these other things. And so first, channels. They are like the ways in which you are reaching your customers. So that might be like, are you going to advertise on Facebook? Are you going to put flyers up in the local supermarket? It's like all those ways in which you're going to reach your customers. Key metrics, that's about like, how do you know that your idea is succeeding? And this is really important, because if you set out to do something and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to go and do it, but you haven't actually thought about like, how do you know that you're having an impact? How do you know that you're winning? Then you're not able to like do better. You're not able to go like, oh, that's why I'm winning. I'm going to put all my energy over here now. So it's important that you think about it. Unfair advantage. It's something that often sits quite like, can be a bit uncomfortable when we talk about like doing social and environmental good, because we don't really want to like outcompete other people, you know. We just like all want to be this big happy family and we're all doing good. But actually, like, you want to have the most impact. You want to like succeed over other organizations. You don't want like some charity that is doing like a mediocre job to be like on the top of the chain. You want to be on top of the chain if you have the best model. And so the unfair advantage, and also you might be competing actually against like enterprises, organizations that are like not really after doing much good. And so it's like important to think about, but in the context of your projects, it might be, you might find that it's like difficult to articulate, and that's okay, because like most organizations or businesses are like aren't really able to articulate that well. And so it might be things like, it could be even soft things like, we have some relationship that another organization doesn't have. Or we have this leadership model that no other organization has. Or we have access to like endless students at the university that no other organization has. And so like, think about like, why will your idea succeed over other ideas? The next two things, these go together. It's the cost structure and financial sustainability. On like the traditional canvases and like the pure business canvases, financial sustainability is called revenue model or revenue streams. And that's about like, how do you get like money into your organization or your project? And the cost structure is like, how does money like leave your project? Like, where do you spend your money on? What costs money? And these things can be like quite easy to suss out. And all you need to do is just like list like, how will you spend money? How will you make money? But make sure that they're like actually realistic. And also make sure, I would suggest that if you're using volunteer time, I often list that also under the cost structure, because it's like all the resources that you require to make your model work. And if part of the resource is like, I need like endless time from high school students my age, that's worth something, not in dollars necessarily, because you're not paying them. But it's something that you want to account for at least, because it's a risky thing to have in your model, because what if that doesn't work? What if you can't get your hands on that resource? What alternative plan do you have? And so list time, list everything that costs money, but also list like, if you need like connections, if you're like, I can only make this work if I can speak with John Key, that might be a little bit hard. And on financial sustainability, it's not just about like how will you get like a cash injection, but it's also like if your product is going to like succeed over time, it needs to be like self-sustaining. And probably I would recommend, if you want to like do something awesome, that you don't do like, I'm going to take that money from someone giving me money over here and then I'm going to put it over here. Because it's really easy to do that, just like money changing hands. I'm just like conduit between them. Say it's like fundraising action over here, and then like I'm going to do good over here. But really, if you're like able to like build that financial stream like into your model, so that it's actually what you do, and as you are collecting that money, however you're collecting it, you're having an impact just doing that, and that's like where the magic happens. I work for an organisation now that's called the Homeowners and Buyers Association, and my job is to like, well, I'm kind of like the everything girl, so I'm like, sometimes I'm a bit like the CEO, sometimes I'm the secretary, sometimes I do like organisational development and business development, like bits and bobs around the place. But what I focus on is like, how can I see everything across the organisation and create better models and new enterprises, because we have about 3 or 4 enterprises that we're developing at the moment. The way that we make money, so in that context, like we actually have like multiple business models as part of our model, because we're like, we're a larger organization. But the core revenue stream for us is helping people that have leaky or defective properties. So someone that has like a leaky house, and we say, right, no one else knows how to help you because this is really hard stuff, so we can help you. We're going to charge you for it, but it's going to be like overall, the whole process is going to be like faster and cheaper than if you were to hire lawyers or do it on your own because you'd make mistakes. And so we're providing all that value at the same time as we're delivering on our mission, because we're helping them fix their property. And our mission is about like improving the housing stock, like the quality of housing for all New Zealanders. And so each and every time we help someone and they pay us for it to fix their home, we're actually like delivering on our mission. And then also we take the profits from that and we put that into other models that we're developing to get them going. And so we just like keep going again and again on like a new model and a new model. And so that's what you can do if you like actually like integrate them, as opposed to just like taking money over here and sending it over there. Then like the quantitative stuff that's like, we're gonna boost the economy in this particular way, or we're gonna like help all these people do this particular thing. And also, I'd recommend, if you're able to, that you articulate your impact in like a logic model, which is like, it's hard because we don't, because you have to have quite deep knowledge about a problem, I think, often, in order to like actually like articulate this well. But if you are able to say, this person does this activity which causes this to happen, say for example if it's like a person that doesn't have anywhere to live, engages in our homeless shelter or moves into our like homeless house, the output of that is that like they now live in this like this safe and awesome place. The outcome of that might be that like overall what happens is that like they're able to live like more secure lives, they have better eating habits, they see other people that they like and love, and like they get to have like this like integrated and normal life, which enables them to like get on top of everything else in their life that's going wrong. And so like that is the sort of impact that you're creating. Not just like the impact is not just about like your activity and like what happens like as a direct result of it. Like think big, like how is this going to like change the world? And so you might want to do like,
some research on it, some actual research, and showed like, we know that if we do this particular thing, this tends to happen because we've seen that other places. Does anyone have any questions about any other boxes? Or anything else at this stage? And so I know that you guys will be using the canvas to like map out your ideas. And this is going to be like important in the process of like progressing your idea, as well as like when you present your idea, you know like what it is and you can communicate it. But I suppose, and like going about figuring out what your model should look like, I'd recommend that you first start with like, just like map your idea out across the canvas. And after you've done that, and after your team has like argued back and forth about like, oh, this is not really the thing, but this is the thing. And then when you have like a first draft of the model, then you go over maybe with like post-it notes and say like, these are all our assumptions about this. We're assuming that this customer has this particular problem. Or we're assuming that these people hang out at this place, which is where we think we're going to reach them. And then list all those things. And then what you do is that you go together with your team and say, okay, what's the most risky assumption that we're making? You know, is it about, oh, this program is going to cost $2,000 and not $1,000? Probably not. Probably your most risky assumption is about your customer, your problem, your solution. And so when you drill down into your most risky assumption, you're able to actually go and like find out, like ask some questions, maybe call some people up, ask some organizations that are working in a similar space as you, and ask them what they know about the people you're trying to help. And the answers that they give you might likely help you like guide your model, and you can say like, oh, that's actually not how the customer behaves. It behaves in this sort of way. Or actually it's like, yep, it has this problem, but it has this other interrelated problem. And if we don't solve that problem, we don't solve the first problem. And so these are the sorts of things you want to find out. And like also, like if you're able to show to like judges, like we know how this is going to work because we like actually talk to people, like how can they like not love your idea? And again, like if you're wrong, change your idea or start over. Like if your team is strong and you've got good energy, like you can come up with an idea like fast, and you can flesh it out fast and find out like, is this a good idea or not? Like in a matter of like a couple of hours. Like don't sweat it if you have to throw your ideas out. It's much better having like 3/4 of an idea that you know like 3/4 is good, and you have like maybe 1/4 that you're not sure about yet because you haven't had the time to find out, as opposed to having an idea that's like definitely bad. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is the guy that I mentioned earlier, the guy at the Akina Foundation that became my mentor when I was like working with the actors. He has this concept that he calls fairy dust. Rowan Yeoman, who held the workshop last year, he calls it magic. And so it's just like, and you often see that like people in the startup community, they often talk about this like fantasy, transcendent thing that like comes out through these like business models. And because they see so many ideas again and again and again, they're like, this is like, when they see fairy dust or magic, that's when they stop and go like, can you tell me more about that? And it's really about like, there's no way of being sure that you find fairy dust or magic, but it's about like, have you figured something out that no one else has figured out? Are you able to have impact that's like deeper than anyone else? One way to like try to find some magic that makes someone go like, that's a good idea, is to like go through box by box and think about like, is there another way of doing this? If I go through this channel, will I reach like lots more people? Can I think outside the box?
Can I do something that's completely new that no one has thought about, or maybe that changes people's perception about something, which like unlocks how the model works. I'm sorry this is a bit vague, but it's kind of how it is. Like you don't really like, there's no like recipe of finding like that magic. You kind of just have to like throw like your heads together and just like be creative and put all your energy into it and listen to people, listen to customers that talk to you, listen to mentors that talk to you, and find out like what do people feel when they hear your idea and why do they feel that? Because sometimes what you'll see is that that's like rubbish because it's like has like this feel good factor. That's not really what it's about. But if you see people going like, yeah, I get it and it's awesome, that's not when you know that you're on the right track. So like find out why you're on the right track. Maybe you found magic. To close off, there's like, Google the Social Lean Canvas and you'll find the Social Lean Canvas website. And on the website there's an example of how Tom's shoes might fit into a model. You'll also find like lots of different articles about how you use it, different aspects of the canvas, problems with using the canvas, approaches and things like that. So like go and like learn more and find out. And also like if you want to speak with me about it, you can go through any of the organisers and you can put me in touch. Because I'm happy to help if you have any questions. Does anyone have any questions? Rowan told me last time, like, there was heaps of questions. Everyone asked questions. It was awesome. What do you think is going to be like the most difficult part with the canvas? Yeah.
When you start brainstorming for your idea,
Yeah.
do you find it easier to think of problems that you're passionate about fixing, or do you come up with ideas first?
I would start with problems. I would actually start with, if your team doesn't have any idea yet, I would probably start with going as broad as possible first, and then start narrowing it down, and go like, what's wrong with the world? And go like, this is wrong with the world. And then you go like, but why is that a problem? And then you might find a different layer of problems. And then you go like, and then you might want to ask, for any of those problems that intrigue you, you might ask, but why is that a problem? And then you go deeper and deeper by asking why. So it's like, someone called that process like the 5 whys. You might want to ask 5 times, or more, or less. And then like you find this like trail for like, when you find a problem that you've like asked why 5 times, you're like able to backtrack and you go like, holy cow, like this fits in with this greater whole in this particular way. That's quite interesting. So I'd start with that. And start with like what you're passionate about. Like, the problems that you see around you. That's where I'd start. Yeah?
We've got to do this really fast, like this whole process. So what are your tips about like doing it quickly?
How fast?
Like a few days. That's all the first time. 1 week.
Yeah, I typically, well, so there's 2 stages, right? It's like knowing about your idea, knowing that you like have like a relatively well formulated idea, and then there's like fleshing it out and then expanding on the idea. If you don't have any idea, that's really like the first part. Like go to the canvas like after you've had your like initial thinking about like, oh yeah, this might be an idea, this might be how it hangs together, and then put it into the canvas. Because when you have that foundation, you can work through the canvas and like, you can flesh out the basics in like 15 minutes. And then you go like, well, 90% of this is rubbish. And then you go like, another maybe 20 minutes or an hour, and you go like, oh, okay, this is much better. And so you like, work on like improving it. But it doesn't have to take that long. And I'd also say like, think about how like think about how you're working as a team when you're doing that, because you might want like, maybe you want like one person who's like really good at being like the devil's advocate and going like, how do you know that that's true? Like, you really know that that person has that problem. But then you also want to make sure that your team is like together enough that you don't just like stop all the time, because that can take a lot of time. So just like find ways of like maybe breaking up into groups, or like yeah, just try to work differently if things are really slow. That would be my recommendation. Anything else that's going to be hard? Does anyone have ideas yet? Does this work? Some people are nodding. No? No one has ideas yet? Wow. So where are you guys intending to start? Like, do you like get together as a team? Like, do they have a session together as a team, like everyone?
Well, later on I'll have around and then one idea for nation.
Okay.
Probably
Alright, if there's no other questions, I'll let you go. And yep, you can get the presentation of the organisers if you want it. Yep, that's all. Thanks.
Talking about the social link canvas, that will be a very crucial element to your business, and I'll set the foundation, so I hope you've listened attentively because it'll be really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sweet. So thank you, Lena. And our next two speakers, we're really privileged to welcome two very special guests. We've got Aditya and Hayley at the back. Their company, Gyropad, won last year's University of Auckland Social Innovation Kickstart Challenge. And Aditya as the CEO and Hayley as the CMO today. They'll be sharing with you their experiences, how they went through the whole enterprise, coming up with a business idea, how they did it, and giving you tips on how they succeeded. So.
Alright, so as Simon outlined, I'm Aditya, this is Hayley, and so we started last year. We were just a group of 5, and we were just like really ambitious high school students. We just wanted to do something that was sort of enterprise, but something unique, so that's when we went into like NZEEC economics, environmental, this competition, and then the social innovation one. And so what we found as our core idea was the idea of the fact, because we study a lot, we use a lot of workbooks. We realize at the end of the year, when you throw these away, like half the book isn't used, and like you can totally like recycle this paper. And then when we look at our bits, we like still there's like hundreds of books that we could be reusing this. So that's like the idea. That was our initial problem we really sort of stuck with. So through that, we developed our purpose. So what happened was that when we had an initial idea, we actually thought of just straight up recycling it and then selling it, and then we tried different ideas to like how the feasibility went by. So in fact, we changed the idea probably like 10 or 12 times before we got our final idea. So it's all about like trying different ideas and sort of testing the feasibility of each one before you settle for one. But we always stuck with that core problem that we thought was like a gold mine, the fact that this paper is being wasted. So I'll give it to Hayley now to talk about our specific problems.
Yeah, so as the speaker before said, there's no real sort of order you should do the social link canvas in. There's no like particular rule, but for us, we thought it was really helpful to start with the problem. So the problem should be, well, for us, it was something that all of us as high school students encountered day to day, daily, well, yearly at least. So our problem was that what we saw was that in our high schools, at the end of each year, after the exams, after the whole year of work, you finish a notebook, everything's great, and then you chuck it away. So then that was the first problem we encountered. That was paper wastage. So all this paper, all these notebooks eventually go to waste at the end of each year. So this is something that's a recurring problem, something that will happen all around us. In our high schools, not only in our high schools, but all the other high schools in Auckland and all the high schools. Also, another more broader problem I'd like to talk about that we identified as one of our key issues was the lack of awareness of environmental sustainability. So this wasn't just targeted at high schools, that wasn't just a high school problem, rather that's a problem that we saw that was prevalent within the older generation, the younger generation, so something that really broadened our market towards other consumer segments as well.
Just something to add to Social Link Canvas in terms of existing alternatives. Like, we didn't really find anyone that was using this, so that was another key, unique part of thing. So in terms of like our solution, so what we ended up doing was we asked high school, we went to high school and said, okay, look, donate your old books. We'll go and we'll help like primary school students, teach them how to recycle these books into new books. So what we did is we went to the high school students, we said, okay, donate your books. We take the books, then we go to primary school students, we said, okay, we're gonna run a workshop for you guys. So let's say for like, I don't know, 20 bucks per person, and then we run that workshop, and then what we do is we teach them how to make that book into a recycled book. So what we did was we took the wasted pages, so like, you know, the pages you write on, we take that and we recycle it into recycled paper, and we take the unused pages and we use that as the part of the new book. So through that, we bind it all together and that'd be their new book. So it was like a 2-day workshop process that taught them how to do that. So our product was actually like selling it to the primary schools, teaching them about, you know, recycling and stuff. And we thought that was especially key in some places like New Zealand, where all schools really care about environmental sustainability. They can take fancy pictures and show off to other schools. And then some other key metrics we had, like, so key metrics like stuff that make sure that we're actually making a social impact. So in our case, it was quite simply like literally the amount of books we were taking and getting reused. So that's like one literal one. But another key metric was the amount of workshops we did, because the more we do it, the more the information gets spread, the more people understand about environmental sustainability. You can just do this, you know, recycling these books in your house. The simple process that we outlined in our workshop.
Yeah, so moving on to the unique value proposition. You need to identify what is so special about your idea. What is unique about your idea that other businesses or other social enterprises don't have? So for us, in this example, I want to compare ourselves to work calls. So for us is that each book that is donated will get recycled. So that is something that work calls can't guarantee. They don't even have the system of book donation and everything going on. So for us, that is our unique value. And then at the end of each workshop, it is guaranteed that every participant will get one of our recycled notebooks. So something physical to come out of the workshops that we have. And this sort of links quite closely with unfair advantages. What is something that your social enterprise has or your idea has that will give you an unfair advantage, that will make customers choose your social enterprise or your product rather than someone else's? So again, as I said before, I'm going to move on to the second point. As I said before, our books are also recycled. I know that lots of stationery stores such as Whitcoulls or other ones, they do have recycled books to sell as well. But for us, it's all of the books are recycled, everything is great, everything is environmentally friendly. Also, we have that volunteer component. So what I mean by that is mostly going towards the consumer consciousness, that whole sort of environment. And then that is because for us, the workshops aren't just run by us. We also we recruit volunteers from other high schools and such. And in this way, that creates an unfair advantage on our part. And then channels. This is moving on to a more of a marketing aspect. So what channels do you have? What channels do you have that you can utilize to reach out to the people, to reach out to your customers or to your market? So for us, because we wanted to reach out mostly to high school students in terms of book donation, we utilized social media. And on that note, please like our Facebook page. Thank you very much. And also, other than that, we also utilized our volunteers. So when we recruit volunteers, after that, we'd like to utilize them in the sense of word of mouth. So just in terms of book donation in their schools, volunteers in separate schools will just send something out, either go to each of the schools or use the volunteers to send out a message, hey, we're right now looking for any book donations or such like that. And in that case, that is another channel for us. No?
All right. So in terms of our customer segment, so like the product, I guess the service we're selling was the workshop. So it was mainly the primary schools. but it was also the high school students who donate the book. So in our case, we to target both these things, we focus on the aspect of, we're going to recycle your book, you do something good with your waste, and we're going to teach like, straight environmental sustainability. So but because we had that aspect, made people, willing to give it free. There was like barely any cost for us in that sense. And so that's how we really like targeted that social aspect.
Wait, go back. That was my slide, sorry, I forgot. Anyway, also another thing, adding to that, in terms of your customer segments, once you've identified those, you'd like to rank them, and not rank them in terms of importance per se, but rather rank them in terms of which ones you want to target first. So for us, we identified the high school students and the primary schools, not the primary school students, because we're not really targeting them, we're targeting the primary schools to facilitate our workshops. So from there, we decided that yes, it is the high school students that we want to target first. We want to reach out first. Why is that? Because we need the donated books first before we carry out our workshops. So that is something you need to take into account as to sort of chronologically rank your sort of customer segments into which one do you have to reach out to or get with first. Yeah.
Right, so in terms of the financial costs, one of the main things about social enterprises is that it's because you're focused on social goals, it's quite hard to fit in profit. Just want to really remind you that financial sustainability, feasibility is just as important as idea. And so I'm going to repeat that. Financial, the idea is as important as the feasibility. So in our case, our costs were just small blenders and electricity and binders and stuff, but those are all fixed costs we could buy initially. Then from that, we know that everyone's going to give us free books. It doesn't cost us to go host it at the primary workshop, so there's no cost there. So as soon as we get enough workshops, we're easily going to pay this off. We're going to start making a lot of money in the long-term scale, and then we can invest more into expanding more. Because our goal was increasing the awareness. But the thing we really had to nail down, especially what helped us win the competition, was the feasibility. When you think of the idea, think of why is this going to work? Why do people want to make this work? Think of every single possibility reason why it could fail. Yeah. And then, so our impact at the end of the day was just straight up less waste of paper, but more importantly, the fact that we want to run lots of workshops, we wanted to expand across New Zealand, we wanted to increase that knowledge about environmental sustainability. And so that's in our presentation. In terms of how we did, we actually, so as you said, we won the social innovation competition, but we also did the NZEEC competition first. And we didn't even pass the first round. We were just, we were really lazy back then. And as I said, we weren't really talking about the specific ideas. We didn't go through exactly what we were going to do. We weren't clear on an idea. And that's what made us lose. But then that's another thing, you shouldn't give up just because you lost this. You can go in and still make it an amazing idea. So yeah, we got $2,000 funding for it as well.
Anyone have any questions about anything? No? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Catherine?
What was the hardest part of the social enterprise?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
I'll go first. I think at that time last year I was quite busy as well, so I had to balance a lot of things. I didn't get to learn actually about the whole social lean canvas, so I think that would have made it much easier to just be able to organize my ideas. So this is social lean canvas is a really good tool to help you guys. So. Yeah.
Also to add to that, you have to when you think of the idea, pretend it's already happening, and then think of everything, every single possible reason why it could fail, and then try and fix that. So and then that's how you get a good idea. Well, at the point where there's very little reason why it would fail. Yeah.
Right. So thank you, Haley and Aditya, so much for your presentation. I trust everyone will appreciate it a lot, seeing as they just learned about the social lean canvas, and here is a really solid working example of that. So thank you so much. So guys, on a side note, we have a Facebook group for all of you participants. So that would be a really nice place for you to ask people questions, get ideas. Well, probably not share your group's ideas, which is that would sort of defeat the purpose. But anything that you think would benefit everyone else, and us facilitators will be posting updates and information in that as well. So if you scan that code, you'll get taken to that group immediately. But if you want to copy that long number down, you can do that as well. So.
Hey guys, we're just going to give you 10 minutes to do some idea formulation using the social link canvas that you just learned. And so hopefully in that time you can come up with something that you'd be interested to work on over the next few weeks. And after that you'll be assigned to a mentor with another group, so you can get some constructive feedback from them so you can improve your ideas. So now is your chance to work with a group for 10
Right now we're going to introduce all the mentors at the back there. You'll be paired up into a group you'll be paired up with another group, and you'll be working with one of these mentors throughout the duration of the competition. So I'll just start introducing them. From GyroPad, who you just heard from before, we have 5 mentors. We have Aditya and Haley, as you saw before. And we've also got David and Andrew and Louisa. We've also got Kenyal, as you heard from before. And
So we have Donald here. So hi Donald. He's very experienced. With Alex, with Kieran, Clement, and Kate. Yeah, that's our team. And so if you could please bring your ideas and some social link canvas to them, and they'll give you some constructive feedback. So you can either choose to stay in here. Oh, sorry, I'm just a very important person here as well. So Victor will also be one of our mentors. Very important, you should definitely go to him for advice as well. So you can either choose to stay in here or go outside, and you have one mentor between 2 teams. Yeah.
Yep, so pair up with a group nearby to you, or just any other group in the room, and either hang around in here or chill outside, and a mentor will be there to meet you.